Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy. I'm excited to talk with my guest today, someone who I've known for enough years that I'm now officially having trouble counting them up. He is being kind enough to flash me 7 years. I would have guessed between the 6 to 8 range, but frankly, AJ, if it is outside of about 5 years at this point, I'm like, I don't know. It's between it's a half decade to a decade at this point. Those are the gaps that we're working with. Someone who I've known for a while, had some really fun conversations with, and watched him grow this incredible, initially estate planning, but now more business succession, business planning. He has skills in negotiation. I'm sure we're going to get into a wide variety of things here. Everything short of an actual playbook on how to murder someone, but maybe we'll get into that. I just don't know where we're going to go with this. That's the joy of the show. So I'm really happy to welcome to the podcast my friend and founder of Yolofsky Law, AJ Yolofsky. AJ, great to have you here.
Charlie, thank you so much for the introduction. It is really an honor to be on your podcast, because in the same vein that for as long as we've known each other, I've watched you grow in your professional capacity and sort of grown along with you. And I remember my first meeting with you at Summit back in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2017, got to count, right? What was for breakfast? And me thinking, when I had a break from drinking from the fire hose from all the information that was provided, right, which they don't teach you in law school, right? That, holy cow, how could I get up there? How could I be up there? How could I be in the future a resource that people would want to come to me and ask for my help? It's been exciting. Very early tagline when I first got my law degree on Facebook was, I'm an attorney and a U.S. Marine. One way or another, I can solve your problem. We won't get to murder. Like that's someone else. It's someone else. They defend that stuff, right? Yeah, right. We're not going there. Let's talk about peaceful resolution.
There you go. Well, all right. So you already teased you know what the opening question here is. AJ, what's the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
This is a great title for a podcast, because you're going to have so many episodes with unique answers. For me, what they never taught us in law school was the importance of self-care in the profession, as part of this profession. The burnout rates are insane.
They are. Now, let me say real quick, this is coming from, former Marine, right? So that's a group that's not necessarily associated with a ton of self-care. There are issues within that community that we're all aware of. A lawyer as well, a business owner, entrepreneur on top of it all. You're like a trifecta of existential crisis.
We can keep going.
I'm
right?
Sure.
we can keep going in that regard, because let's just add on some of these other areas.
Go for it.
High school athlete, collegiate athlete, as a club player, martial arts, and then rugby. And then also within the Marine Corps, there were certain schools that I went to, certain training I received, that again puts us in another hyper category of specialization, right? So all of these things, right? Self-care, and in the legal community, self-care is largely booze and drugs.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a new sort of push towards health, meditation, emotional health, mental well-being, like those types of things that didn't exist in law school.
Yeah.
It doesn't really exist except in lip service only in the broader profession.
Why?
Because what's that?
Why?
Culturally and systemically, law school teaches service to others. The entire legal profession is built on service to others. In fact, the bar rules in many states, and Florida included, the lawyer must put, it's black letter law, to use a pun phrase, that the lawyer puts their client's needs, wishes, etc., ahead of the lawyer's interests, provided this doesn't violate any criminal statute or create a fraud. What this fails to do, what this perpetuates rather, is this cycle of, oh my God, I have to do X for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are attracted to the law profession, anyway, for the most part, are people who enjoy serving others, who enjoy working for others. Yes, there's an excitement, there's a rush that we all get depending upon what our field is. And so you have people that are trial lawyers, defense attorneys, plaintiffs' lawyers, whatever it is, they get that rush out of the courtroom. And we see that perpetuated in Hollywood, right, on TV and in pop culture and literature.
Certainly.
We also see it in a strange way. If you think back to Pretty Woman, the character that Jason Alexander played, the corporate attorney, right?
Okay, yeah.
He got a kick. The way it was portrayed, that character got a kick out of making deals. And he got a kick out of making deals a certain way. That perpetuates. That's never something you see in a courtroom, right? Mm-hmm. It's not perpetuated on TV because, like, you don't get that climactic cinematic moment of someone signing a document, which these days is electronically anyway. So there really is nothing. I don't care how good Hans Zimmer or Michael Giacchino is with the music, Giacchino. You're not gonna get it from just going like, deal's done. $10 million, $30 million. You get people.
So
who get
this sounds like we're
of,
advocating to have an orchestra in the courtroom for when the verdict gets delivered, right? That's really
well,
what
yeah. If you think about it, like think about what the orchestra might have sounded like for OJ's Dream Team when the verdict was read. What would have been Judge Ito's soundtrack for deliberations, for what for all the things he was attempting to manage, right? How would they reflect on the prosecutors? Right. It still doesn't matter. The lawyers themselves, right? We all came to law school for one reason or another, but somewhere in there there's this service aspect to it. And nowhere in that is that you have to take care of yourself. And then we get into the profession, and whether big law gets a bad rap for this, it's institutionalized. Yet, nevertheless, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're in big Wall Street firm or it's Los Angeles entertainment firm. I'm trying to think what maybe a specialty entertainment firm in Nashville, right? What would it be being a new lawyer there, or in fact a busy personal injury firm?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that the way that law school teaches the profession that with very little on the business of law, the profession of law, the service of law, and then the demands of clients, and nowhere in there is, hey, you need to take care of yourself. So if you don't, you're never going to be able to take care of your clients. You're never going to be able to take care of your people. As an adjunct to this, or as a corollary to this, one thing I guess 2 for 1 in this one, but it's something
good.
that needs to be taught is leadership is 100% leadership training, skill building is 100% absent in law school.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They don't know the first thing about it. Yes, I was fortunate. I received probably some of the best basic leadership training and skill development that the United States offers, which is Marine Corps Officer Candidate training and the basic school, and then being out in the Fleet Marine Force, where I had the opportunity to learn leadership from 20-year Marines, both enlisted and officer, and then everything in between. One early tidbit that was given to me by he was a midshipman like I was back in Naval ROTC for the short time that I spent there. But he said, easiest way to start learning leadership is watch what the people who are above you do, and then decide if you want to adopt that skill into your toolbox, take it into your toolbox, or commit to never doing that again.
Hmm.
And yet we see over and over and over again the same bad leadership in not only in law schools, right? Look at the row that happened with some of the different deans over the various things, the various political, socio-political things, doesn't matter, that are
Yep.
happening, but there really is a lack of leadership. So these two things come together. If you're going to be on your own or in a small firm, medium-sized firm, doesn't really matter, you're going to have to lead. The person you have to lead first is yourself. If you can't lead yourself to taking care of yourself, doing the things that are necessary for self-care, you're just going to fall apart. And so is everything else
Okay.
around you.
So then, you being someone who had this background of, I'll claim the words. Feel free to reinterpret what I'm saying, but a background that I think a lot of people would associate with just toughing it out, right? Kind of swallow it, tough it out, deal with it, compartmentalize it. To someone who has now explored more of this self-care area, where did that journey begin, and or where could that journey begin for others who are hearing this and going, yeah, but not me though, I'm good?
I compartmentalized things for probably the better part of 40 years. I'm a bit older than that, and I'm bracketing. Right? I can't really account for what I did when I was 6 and younger, kind of thing. You can compartmentalize it. There's a great book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Mm.
I'd have to pull the author. It's about stored trauma, how emotional trauma stores in your body. I figured it out on a surface level. A very easy thing to talk about is from the family I grew up in, which was in my grandparents' house, in which they were depression kids. My grandmother, I think, shared shoes, right, when she was growing up. They didn't. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. They didn't have much, right? And they had a way of approaching money. My mother, I grew up in a single mother home. My mother did the best she could, and I applaud her for that. Between the three of them, here you have multiple generations, literally and figuratively, because it's also how my grandparents were brought up in each of their homes, and an approach to money. And so I inherited some of that and compartmentalized it without ever knowing I was compartmentalizing it, because it was just, hey, you're 8 years old. I was 9 years old when I first started making my own money, because I was told that if I wanted something, that I wanted something, and the differentiation is now what I'm teaching my kids. There are things we need, there are things we want, and there are things that are nice to have. Okay. If I wanted something, then I had to earn the money to do it, because we didn't have the budget. We didn't have the money to do that thing I wanted. And what my mom extended to me was, if you raise half of it, I'll contribute the other half, which was great.
Yeah.
So they provided, as I said, she did the best that she could, and I applaud her for it. She provided for the needs.
Right.
And we're talking like Maslow hierarchy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The wants, hey, that's kind of up to you. So what did I do? Age 9, I wanted, who knows what it was back then, latest toy, Coleco football or something like
there
that,
you
right?
go.
Like the dash line kind of
Yeah.
game. And so it was easy growing up in New Jersey. So in the winter, this was my first job, shoveling snow, knocking on doors in the neighborhood and shoveling snow. In the fall, it became raking leaves. Summer, washing cars, shining shoes, right? Spring was lacrosse season eventually. But the point is that this was my training as it related to money. So as I got older, money was treated by me as a scarce resource. So as soon as I get it, hang on to it. I'm still working through now, how many years later, and having built the firm, it's still this, oh, I have it, let me hold on to it.
Yeah.
But let's face it, with rising with inflation, right? I'm not going to bother with the economic or political analysis of it, but with things like inflation, right? Typically, the inflation rate is higher than the basic savings interest rate. So no matter what, you're losing money because of inflation. So
Yeah.
it's a really bad idea to just hoard money. Get it out. Make it. It's money is a tool. It's a tool to get goods and services. It's a tool to make investments. It's a tool to build. Yet I've had to process this, and interestingly enough, as I've started working through this analysis, I find, back to Body Keeps the Score, there are places in my body where it shows up. I first got introduced to meditation, right? Great self-care.
Yeah.
Meditation, almost 20 years ago. And it was through a lineage instructor who I think based in California, and then one of the people he trained here in South Florida. So track my lineage to someone in China for this, and I'm by no means a master. So the talk when finding something wrong in the body, it was a place of strength, a place of tension, tightness, or this one was great, something that doesn't feel quite right, even if you don't know what it is. And then instead of sort of pounding at it, right? Like, oh my, here and massage, something like that.
Right.
Just relax it. And that was the basis of this meditation concept, of this energy concept of just relax, right? Just let it relax. And so an early task that the instructor had me do, and I'll do it every now and then, was to make a fist, right? And instead of opening my fist and opening my hand, instead just sit, concentrate a little bit, and relax the hand open. Let everything just unwind. And especially in law, right? Because we're taught in law school, you need to respond right away.
Oh yeah.
And we see it, right? We see it. We see this in communications. We see it in pleadings. We see it in statements to the press, right? Where it's become, what's your reaction? What's your reaction to what Charlie just said? Who cares, right? How about what's my analysis of what Charlie just said? How about I get back to you in a week when I've had a chance to think, when I've had a chance to let my subconscious work on stuff, when I've had a chance to research. Now let me come back and comment. So in that time of allowing yourself to think and to relax and to let the subconscious or the gut, right? There's some, I imagine between us, knowing you as prolific a reader as you are, we could probably reference, I would say, 30 books in this conversation without a second thought. Somewhere, I think it was in one of Cal Newport's books, could be wrong, could be in any number of ones. The number of neurons, or the number of calculations that the subconscious mind can make versus the conscious mind. It's significant, exponential, geometric difference. And yet we ask for, what's your reaction? Or opposing counsel says, I sent you this at 5 p.m. yesterday. Dude, what do you want from me?
So how do you deal? How do you deal in a practical matter, slowing it down?
Let me go back to Cal Newport, which is deep work. Super influential book.
A concept that excites and terrifies people at the same time. Excites in concept, terrifies in application.
Correct. Similarly, in a modified version, what was Tim Ferriss, the 4-Hour Work Week, or whatever it is? Right? I don't buy into that one. I'd be bored.
Same.
Nevertheless, short stints. I'm still relaxing my hand, by the way, for those of you on the video. It's kind of opened up a little bit, right? This is hard to do. This is really hard to do. So I'm just going to take it away for now. getting control of one's calendar, setting strict rules on access, and then abiding by them.
There's that last part right
That's
there,
the tricky
abiding
one.
by them.
Abiding by them. And I'm going to let's just have this book conversation, see what our number eventually gets up to, right? So I'm going to throw out Getting Naked by Patrick Lencioni.
Oh,
being
that's
genuine,
a good one.
being authentic, right? So getting control of the calendar. Yesterday, for example, I had an appointment booked with a potential client, and the client was told, hey, this is the half-hour window for this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And the client, we weren't quite done. And the potential client was saying, I know you have to go. And I said, yes. I said, I would be delighted to extend to you some extra time. I'm at the constraint of, this is absolutely true, I'm at the constraint of the pickup times that my kids' school mandates.
Yeah.
And in order for me to get from this office to their school, to get in line, to pick them up, I got to leave at a certain time, no matter what. So even though, and there's a subtle thing about priorities in there. So these things, getting control of your calendar is self-care. Because there's plenty of time in the day. Plenty. How you organize that time. And the more organized you get, buying back your time, Dan Martell, how more organized you get with your time,
we were going to end up there at some point.
Right. The more you can, the more you can, the more you can do. So very quickly, my morning routine, I'm up at 5 or 5:30. Right? Mm-hmm. I go to bed usually around 11. Right? And morning routine, 20-minute meditation, standing. Make my coffee. I love that ritual. Bulletproof, of course, with chocolate salt now. We won't talk about your wonderful post about your introduction to bulletproof coffee. You can share that on your own.
You mean
time.
The one where I was running to the bathroom a couple hours later? Yeah,
like I said, you can. That's your story.
You warned me about it. In all fairness, you warned me about it.
Language practice. Right. So Duolingo. Why? It's simple. It's gamified, and you can do things in bite-sized pieces. I've got a crazy streak running right now, which is cool. One of the things about learning a second language, look, I live in South Florida. Years ago, finally got tired of being talked at in Spanish, and so I learned. Right? Now I can sometimes participate.
Yeah.
A little bit of practice every day. Then I picked up, because on my team we have Anna, who's Ukrainian, speaks fluent Russian, obviously she grew up in Ukraine, fluent Ukrainian, also speaks fluent Russian. And so we've had the opportunity to expand our practice a bit into the Russian speaking community, Ukrainian speaking community. And what I found was, if I make the effort to speak the language, there's that subtle, oh my God, this person that people ask me, like, where did you learn Russian? And by the way, I'm not really any good, but just that I made the effort.
Yeah.
Now, on the self-care point, because I do have a fear of losing my mind, not in the figurative sense, in the literal sense, something like Alzheimer's, right? It scares me. And there's some research out, right? There's some research out there that the more you train your brain for different skills, you may reduce your chance, right? And I'm also the kid I was also the kid a long time ago where, because I didn't really fill out until my 20s in the Marine Corps, back in those days, it was a whey protein and weight gainers and stuff like that. And if you had told me that you could build muscle by chewing on steel wool, like you just had it in your mouth, like a thing of dip, I would have been walking around high school with a box of Brillo pads, right? It would have been do anything I can to make that improvement. So this is a lot less life-threatening and more socially acceptable way of doing some self-care, which is train my brain into something new, which was learning Russian. It was completely different. And it's useful. And fortunately, plug aside, our kids pick up, I mentioned this earlier about my relationship with money and where I learned it from. So right now with my kids, I'm looking at how can I teach them some of these lessons so that they do the self-care.
Yeah.
So what's happened? They're both into Duolingo now.
Oh,
They're
cool.
both on their streak. They're both coming up. My son, I think, has hit his 100-day streak. My daughter is right on the heels of it. And so they're into it. They don't necessarily understand the why, but they're into it. So meditation, coffee, Duolingo, workout, right? Physical fitness.
Yep.
I won't plug.
You could plug it. I mean, why not?
All right. It's X3 bar, right? Yep. Great piece of gear, variable resistance training. I applaud the inventor, Dr. John Jaquish. He's got a great story. Check out his story.
Mm-hmm.
He is a true scientist. I mentioned this indirectly to him via social media, where he puts out the research. He tells you exactly how he developed it, the reasons he developed it, the science behind it. It's impressive. His book, Weightlifting is a Waste of Time. Well footnoted. So this is the morning routine. So by the time before I even get out the door, I've hit all of these self-care things to prep me for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I can come in, I can come in and get to the office or open up my phone, open up email, which email, bad, right?
Oh, agreed. Email,
bad.
Truly one of the tragedies of modern society.
Useful, right?
Yes.
Useful creates a really bad reaction response. Back to the bit of curriculum in law school about you must respond immediately. Well, look, even in the federal rules of procedure, most state rules of procedure, you have 20 days to respond to some motion, right? Maybe 30 days. I don't know. I don't litigate anymore. Where the other side is saying, here are all the bad things that you did and that the lawyers did. That's always a fun one, right? To see that in a footnote. Counsel for the plaintiff overlooks, blah, 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 blah. No, I didn't overlook it. It just doesn't matter. And you still have 20 days to respond. That's when the rules say, or maybe 30, and then you can get an extension.
Yeah.
But the culture, and maybe even more so with our broader pop culture of social media comments, likes, reactions, that it must be immediate. So I can settle into my day, and normally mornings for me are deep work. Mornings are the deep work.
Yeah.
And so my email will have information from clients or the other side or from a third party. And in that, what I do is I go to Outlook and they have that work offline feature.
Mm-hmm.
Turn it on. I'm offline. I'm not getting the barrage of email coming in to interrupt me.
Yeah.
So deep work, typically 8:30 to noon, 9 to 1, thereabouts. Short break for midday meal if I do that. Some days I don't. Good idea. Another great self-care thing. 24-hour fast. Start with that. Right. It's fantastic.
It's also a good way to challenge your relationship with food. There's like a whole other tangent we could go on with that. Yeah.
We can go down on that one. Which again, back in law school, what do they have in vending machines at law school? Or what they did? Mostly it's garbage. Right? It's not food.
Yeah.
Right. Food is what you find on the outside, for the most part, of the grocery store, on the outside sort of view, right? Vegetables, fruit, proteins, animal products, and then over in the eggs, cheese, and dairy. Like that's kind of it. And then everything in the middle is manufactured somehow. So I got to applaud. I know there's a few cafeterias around. I hate that. I hate that aspect of social media where people take something out and then snipe at you and like, well, at this university we do this. Yeah, of course. Like there's some great chefs out there and kitchen managers and culinary supervisors at all schools that are making an effort. But the finances are such that it's just cheaper to offer a stack of ramen noodles. Right? And I'm not digging on ramen, but it's cheaper to do a stack of ramen noodles rather than a stack of ribeye steaks or a stack of avocados.
Yeah.
Right. So midday meal, And then afternoon, right? The afternoon is also structured where that's when the new client meetings happen. That's when the return phone calls to clients, advisors, opposing counsel, whoever it is, happen. And then all of this gets completely compressed during one of my favorite times of the year, which is now, which is lacrosse season. I coach, and you know this. I mean, I coach I coach both my kids. So I'm coaching a youth boys team and a youth girls team, and it's even better than work offline. It's put my phone in my coaching pack, get on the field, and work with the kids. Yeah. And here's this opportunity to, I'm a defensive coach. And what do I talk to kids about? Patience. Defense is about patience. Why? Because people can only score, and we're not talking about the Premier Lacrosse League, the insane stuff that some of those players can pull off.
Right.
We're talking about a 10-year-old kid who, if they're behind the goal, they're not shooting.
Yeah. Exactly.
Most people behind the goal aren't shooting. There are some classic plays of people.
I will tell you that in basketball, you see a lot of kids try it.
Sure. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. But why? Because you can loop it over, and on that down arc, it can go in the basket. Right? If you try to shoot from behind the goal in lacrosse, there is no arc unless you. I haven't seen this one yet. I haven't seen what's the spin that the tennis players can put, or a golfer can put on the ball, or even a basketball player to get it to bounce a certain way with a stick. I've not seen anyone do that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but pretty much you're not going anywhere. And so as a larger trend, what I've seen at all levels of lacrosse are the defenders, for the most part, run it. Here's the offense, the attacker or the midfielder, and so visually the defender is moving towards the attacker. And what this does, this creates momentum, and it's almost the attacking player, the offensive player, really just kind of dodges the bull charge.
Mm-hmm.
And that defensive player is left in the dust.
Yep.
And so instead, take the position, which is also something we learned back in Marine Corps days. The defense is usually the stronger position. Right, let's throw another pop culture reference, right? One of our favorites. Anakin, I have the high ground. Like, stop it, right? So all these things put together, right? There's all these fun references. But the reality is, okay, teach a kid patience on defense, which, by the way, for lacrosse, a great way to get kids that are just learning the game involved, this is how it started for me, why I started coaching defense. That's what I played. Back in the day, I played defense. What I realized with youth is that there's a lot of kids who can't throw and catch, and great life lesson in lacrosse, everybody starts the same way, which is terrible. Every single player starts terribly. Like, what is this thing? How do I?
Oh, yeah.
On defense, these kids don't have to worry as much. They can allow that. There's that time to allow them to develop their skills, their throwing and catching skills, by playing defense, because it's similar to basketball in a sense, or soccer, where it's just get in the way. And then you have this stick. And now we tell them, hey, and how I coach it, which is make it legal, make it count. Right? I don't want people winding up. Make it legal. Use a legal check. Here are some ways to do it. Make it count. Get the player to drop the ball. Develop
Honestly,
patience.
That sounds like good advice for lawyers as well. Mm-hmm. Make it legal, make it count.
Mm-hmm. Right. So coaching lacrosse is my way of reaching more kids with my crazy philosophies about life that I wish someone had taught me. That some of it they definitely don't teach you in law school. Be patient. You don't have to react to everything. Right? Stoic philosophy. So let's wrap up a whole bunch here. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. By the way, that top
poster.
Thank you.
That's what I'm stoicism. Here for.
Yeah, I know. Appreciate it, right? Next to my kids, that poster up there is Stoicism 101 from Brian Johnson's Heroic. And so it has all the big names up there, right? And Stoicism gets kind of a bad rap in certain instances because, like, well, you have no emotion. No, quite.
Yeah.
I have emotions. I recognize that those emotions exist. I want to address those emotions. I want to allow them to recognize them for what they are. And now at a higher level, where they show up in my body. If I've compartmentalized and maybe they're causing pain, stress, inflammation, tension, something that doesn't feel quite right, and I don't really know what it is. Stoicism allows you to start, oh, I'm feeling happy. That makes me happy. Is it going to take me off my game that the judge just ruled in my favor? That the other side just caved on a point that I was ready to just let go, right? Negotiation strategies, never split the difference, Chris Voss. I really am going to have some fun with, like, how many do we get into this conversation? So teaching back to lacrosse coaching, but teaching these kids all these different things resonates. Mm-hmm. How will they use it later? Right? How will they incorporate it? And so by teaching kids who are brand new the art of lacrosse defense, now we make them a part of the team and a contributing member of the team in a way that other people really don't think about so much, because it's all about goal scoring. Great. So you can score 10 goals, but if the other team scores 10 goals, you're no better off than where you were before. So the first season we implemented this, which actually came out from, I had given up coaching for a few years. I'd coached the oldest one, who's now graduating high school. She's on the top there. So I had ended up coaching the middle one's team, my daughter, by accident. I brought her to practice. Coach didn't show up, had some kind of conflict. And I was just like, okay, all these kids had come out to practice lacrosse. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. All these kids had come out to practice lacrosse. There's no coach there. I messaged the director. He's like, oh my God, could you step in? Yeah, sure, absolutely. So we ran a practice. I talked to the coach, and the coach eventually told me, hey, I have a conflict. Could you run Thursdays? Sure, I'll run Thursdays. So that's this evolution. Then a few weeks into that season, my son, who's kind of hidden there, he, in his own way, he was very young. He was 5 years old. He got kind of salty about it, that dad is coaching his sister's team, but not his. So I went to the coach and said, hey, could I help out? Absolutely. And it was, what do you want to do? I said, I'll coach defense. So I started teaching these kids, made defense important, made defense recognized as a contributor. Now what happens? By the end of that season, 2 months later, by the end of that season, the kids that were playing offense, that were scoring the goals, were coming up and, hey, coach, can I play defense today? Because we created this culture. Cool. And quite frankly, I modeled the culture on what I saw in 2 different defensive units. It's going to pain me to say the second one, but the first one was how Romeo Crennel with the Patriots built those great defenses of the Super Bowl years.
Yeah.
Right? And what did he do? Aside from all the training and everything else, but what he did is he differentiated himself by wearing a bright red jacket, sweatshirt, some t-shirt, whatever, depending upon where they were playing, that made him stand out on the sideline. So I did the same thing. If all the other coaches, our team colors are blue and gray, and then of course white. If other coaches are wearing blue, I'm wearing white. If they're wearing white, I'm wearing blue, so that the kids could find me, right? The second one, and this one as a lifelong Steelers fan.
Just saying.
I have nothing but the absolute but most respect and admiration for what Ray Lewis used to do on the sideline with his defense, with his entire team before the game. And so if there's 2 people that I could pick on how to mold a team defense, these were the 2. And we got that. We created that. And the kids really took pride in it. And it was like, oh, wow, this is great. Everybody feels really good about it. And then, of course, it starts coming up in other places. Some of these kids I've now coached for 5 years. And I hear them talking about it in other areas, because I see them out at, whether it's at school or at a tournament or, away from the field. And I'll hear them talking, and they'll be talking about a video game or something like that. And they're gearing up, and they're like, make it clean, make it count. Bam. Wow, that's amazing, right?
AJ, you've managed to bring this full circle. And sorry, I have to drop this in here. We started by mentioning a playbook for murder. and we've managed to get to Ray Lewis, just allegedly.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
Allegedly, right? We've
Allegedly.
managed to do a solid
Wow.
full circle on that.
And we got OJ in there too.
That's right. Allegedly. Yeah.
That's one of the most remarkable things about the profession of law. And I think, we talk about what they don't teach you in law school. And I'm specifically talking about self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about the overload. And we're talking about two very high profile people right in this little portion here. But what about the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are served by public servants,
mm-hmm.
right? By public defenders, by prosecutors, by legal aid, and it's pretty well known that none of these for the most part pay real well. And one of the things that law school never ever discusses, but it doesn't matter where you end up in the profession, it is the same. The demands are the same.
Yeah.
The bar rules don't differentiate between, hey, if you're a public defender and you're overworked because you've got 500 cases, you represent 500 different clients, that you can take a moment off, that you can you can break away, and the budgets certainly aren't there. And free political pitch to everybody who's listening is contact your local representative, your state representative, and get the courts funded. It helps everyone. Get the courts funded. So we do come full circle on some of this, but you have to take care of yourself. And I think we do such a poor job of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's something, and I applaud the attorneys who are doing it, who are giving these, hey, 1 hour lunch CLEs on mindfulness or meditation, or who are also double, have a side hustle as a yoga instructor, as a fitness trainer, as a nutritionist, as something like that, because the amount of the contribution that they're making is amazing, but it's not institutionalized.
Yeah. So AJ, if before I ask you the last little trio question here, if people want to connect with you, learn more about you and or the firm, where should we send them to?
So you can find us at yolofskylaw.com, which of course is really easy to spell. Rolls right off
the tongue. Look in the show notes. We'll link to it.
Look in the show notes, right? We're on LinkedIn. So once you get close to my name, and having lived in several different states, it was always fun. Quick side story. It was always fun to open up the phone book. Remember those? And look for my name in the different states I lived in, because the Marine Corps transferred me around. Never found it.
Yeah.
Variations, but never the same spelling as mine. We're on social media. We're pretty easy to find on Google. We're on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. We post quite a bit, ton of information out there. It's very easy to join our list. You can also find us on Amazon, right? I've published a book, Basic Operations, Estate Planning for Business Owners. If you'd like a copy, go to my website and download one, right? Excuse me. So we are fairly easy to find.
All right, last question for you. It's an easy one. 3-parter. What are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
Okay. Watching, not a whole lot. Don't fair. Get a chance to. I don't get a chance to watch a whole bunch. With my kids, we're hockey fans. The Florida Panthers are going on a tear.
That counts.
Right. So we'll watch some of that. Otherwise, for the most part, the TV stays off. Reading right now it's a lot of technical material these days. I just finished 2 books, a couple books worth mentioning, because of listening also, are With the Old Breed by E.B. Sledge. One of the most fascinating accounts of war ever to be written. It's from his notes as a Marine private mortarman during the battles for his training, the battles of Peleliu and Okinawa. It is a rough read if you are not conditioned for it. It is not stylized violence. It is the reality of war.
Right.
I've recently finished The End of the World is Just the Beginning by Peter Zeihan. Fascinating take on globalization and how we really only we only hear about, I should say, a small snippet of each piece in the globalization discussion, right? Say manufacturing in the Midwest or right. But what Zion does is he actually takes it all the way through every piece of the process, from the raw materials to the financing to the transportation to the actual manufacturing and then to the end user. It's a bit scary.
Gotcha.
So I'm listening to that. There's some other different books out there on development. I would say one of the most important things that I've done in the last couple of years. So many years ago, Charlie, you inspired me to talk about you inspired me to do the 50 books in a year. That was new books. Instead, I'm going back and reading the ones that have been most impactful.
I love that choice. Truly love that choice. And AJ, I have loved this conversation. I look forward to many more of these. We'll definitely have you back on the show. I mean, hey, at some point we got to do the episode on the technical. Hey, here's how you do some business succession planning. Here's how you can think about technical structures, all that other expertise. But I'm so grateful that we went down this wonderful rabbit hole of self-care. And I know that, we've only really hit the tip of the iceberg on all of this. So AJ, my friend, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Charlie.
And we will see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.